This video provides a complete overview and demonstration of iClicker Cloud. With iClicker Cloud, instructors can easily engage their students in new ways using iClicker Cloud's in-class polling, self-paced quizzing, attendance tracking, and student study tools. Let's get started. Here's a preview of what this video will cover. I'll give you an overview of the iClicker family of products and talk more specifically about iClicker Cloud. I'll explain the available options for adding grades from iClicker to an LMS, as well as what instructors need to do to get up and running with iClicker Cloud in their classrooms. I'll review the student experience and do a quick discussion of pricing, then give a real-time demonstration of running polls, quizzes, attendance, and viewing results from both the instructor and student perspective. I'll go over the software settings and discuss the most essential aspects. Lastly, I'll show you the many resources we have to support you and your students. Instructors love iClicker because it is simple to run and requires very little setup. With iClicker, there's no need to feed questions and answers into a separate system. Instead, iClicker floats on top of whatever presentation tools you're already using. This means you can ask your students polling questions using PowerPoint, Google Slides, a word processing document, or even while showing your students a video. iClicker gives each of your students a voice, from the noisiest extrovert to the brilliant introvert, taking students from passive observation to active learning. As a result, iClicker use encourages attendance and improves focus on the learning session. You're also able to provide and collect instant feedback. This is one of the aspects of iClicker that both instructors and students love. Creating a tight feedback loop has been demonstrated by research time and time again as one of the most profound things instructors can do to improve student learning outcomes. iClicker also makes the grading process easy, from marking which answers are correct to connecting the iClicker gradebook to your institution's learning management system. The features I just reviewed are available if you're using either iClicker Classic or iClicker Cloud. These are the features that are unique to iClicker Cloud. iClicker Cloud is our mobile-optimized response system. This means your students can participate in polls using their smartphones, laptops, and tablets. You can also allow your students to use iClicker remotes in your class. If you choose this option, you will need to have an iClicker base in your classroom, but this can be a good option for you and your students, especially if you're on a campus where students may have already purchased an iClicker remote. With iClicker Cloud, you're able to conduct multiple choice quizzes in addition to polls. With cloud quizzing, your students are able to take quizzes at their own pace, and you're able to keep the questions and answers concealed from your students. This is a great option for those of you who rely on Scantron quizzes throughout the semester. With cloud quizzing, you can administer, grade, and return quizzes in less time than it takes to walk to the Scantron machine. iClicker Cloud can also automate the task of taking attendance. With iClicker Cloud Attendance, you won't have students asking you how much class they've missed as they contemplate skipping your class for whatever reason. You can use attendance with or without GPS location. iClicker Cloud also creates instant study guides for your students as you conduct polls in your class. This is something students love, and providing it takes no additional work on the instructor's part. Each time you ask your students a polling question, a screenshot is set to their account, and those screenshots are available after class to be used as a study guide. Students are also able to take advantage of study tools in iClicker Reef. With study tools, they can turn your polling questions into flashcards or practice tests. iClicker Cloud also includes exit polling, where you can ask your students to provide you with feedback about each session you run in class. You're also able to display answers to short questions as word clouds. Lastly, with iClicker Cloud, your administration can also have access to iClicker Campus. iClicker Campus is a free tool that gives administrators the data they need to make the most out of institutional adoptions of iClicker Cloud. In this video, we're focused primarily on iClicker Cloud, so if you're interested in knowing more about iClicker Campus, be sure to get in touch with us. With iClicker Cloud, you can easily bring the points your students earn with iClicker into your official gradebook. You can access your students' grades from within the iClicker Cloud desktop software or by logging in as an instructor at iClicker.com. We have 3 ways you can add grades from iClicker Cloud to the gradebook in your learning management system, or LMS for short. First, you can choose to manually download grades in a wide variety of formats, including the ever-popular Excel and CSV formats, and upload them manually to your LMS. The next two options eliminate the need for manual downloads and uploads by integrating iClicker Cloud with your LMS. If you decide to use either of these integration options, be sure to check in with your campus LMS administrator for more information about how this is set up on your campus. Simple LTI integration results in a single column LMS integration, allowing you to push grades from iClicker Cloud over as a single column in your LMS's course gradebook, resulting in a single aggregate score. This option requires a quick one-time setup by a campus administrator and will also require students to connect their iClicker Reef accounts with their LMS course. Enhanced Grade Sync allows you to send grades from iClicker Cloud to your LMS. You can choose to sync scores as either a single total points column or as multiple columns, one for each selected iClicker Cloud session. Enhanced Grade Sync requires a one-time setup by your campus administrator. When this setup is complete, you'll be able to use the iClicker Sync tool inside your LMS to link your iClicker Cloud course to your LMS course. Students will also use this iClicker Sync tool to connect their iClicker Reef accounts to their LMS. The Enhanced Grade Sync option allows the most flexibility and is our recommended option for all Blackboard and Canvas schools moving forward. Currently, Enhanced Grade Sync is only available for Blackboard and Canvas for fall 2018, with other systems coming soon. iClicker Cloud and iClicker Classic share many similarities, though they are distinct in their own right. This chart lays out the differences between these two polling systems. With iClicker Classic, students vote primarily using iClicker remotes, while our iClicker Cloud students rely on their smartphones, tablets, and laptops. However, we'd like to give you a lot of flexibility here. If you want to allow students to use iClicker remotes in your cloud class, all you need to do is plug in the iClicker base. Internet requirements are an area we want to pay special attention to. Wi-Fi is one of the more precious commodities on college campuses today, and we created iClicker Cloud with that in mind. However, we know that many of the classrooms you teach in were built before Wi-Fi was a consideration, and sometimes the construction of a building or the placement of a classroom makes it so that Wi-Fi is weak or non-existent. It's always a good idea to check your classroom and make sure the Wi-Fi is robust. If you find yourself in a classroom with weak Wi-Fi, iClicker Classic with iClicker remotes only might be the solution you need. For this reason, iClicker Classic relies on local data storage, while iClicker Cloud keeps its data in, you guessed it, the cloud. Using cloud storage gives instructors the ability to use iClicker Cloud as they move around campus, and it also gives instructors access to their iClicker Cloud gradebook data by simply visiting iClicker.com and logging in as an instructor. No desktop software necessary. Attendance is another feature that's unique to iClicker Cloud. With attendance, you can automate the role-taking process in your class. You have the option of either having students marked as in attendance when they log into iClicker Reef at the start of class, or you can require geolocation for extra assurance that your students are not checking in from anywhere but your classroom. With all of our iClicker solutions, you can always ask multiple choice questions. If your students have the iClicker 2 remote with the LCD screen, you can ask very short answer and numeric questions as well. iClicker Cloud allows instructors the widest variety of question types. You can ask multiple choice questions, questions that take a numeric response, and questions that allow your students to write a short response of up to 140 characters. You can also ask your students a targeted question. With this type of question, you show your students an image, and they touch the image to indicate the correct answer. I'll demonstrate all of these question types during the video. If iClicker Cloud is the solution for you and your students, here's what you'll need to run it in your class. iClicker Cloud requires a computer, the iClicker Cloud desktop software, an instructor account. We recommend having whatever computer you're using to run iClicker Cloud hardwired to the internet. This is recommended but not required. If you're hardwired into the campus internet, a blip in the campus Wi-Fi won't knock you out of a session, and you'll lessen the load, however slightly, on your classroom's Wi-Fi. If you decide to allow the use of iClicker remotes in your classroom, you'll also need the iClicker Classic base hooked up to the computer you're using to run iClicker Cloud. You'll also have the option to use the iClicker Instructor Remote to control your presentation. Lastly, You have the option of using the new iClicker Cloud Instructor app to help run your polling sessions as you move around the classroom. iClicker Cloud's Instructor mobile app allows instructors to control their polling sessions directly from their mobile devices. There is no need to bring your instructor remote or head to your desktop to conduct polls. With the Instructor app, you can control your presentation slides, start and stop polling questions, view poll responses in real time, share poll results on the desktop to display them for students, view poll attendees and who has responded to questions, grade questions and view question history in your session, and view screenshots sent to your students. The iClicker Cloud Instructor app is free to download and use from both the iTunes Store and Google Play. Here is what your students will need to participate with iClicker Reef. Regardless of what devices you allow your students to use in class, all students must create a free iClicker Reef account to ensure that their grades appear in your iClicker gradebook. They can do this by downloading the mobile app via the App Store or Google Play, or by visiting the iClicker Reef student website. Students should not create more than one Reef account. If they have an existing account, they should use it. Upon creating a Reef account, students receive a free 2-week trial with Reef. Students who will be using iClicker Reef on a smartphone, laptop, or tablet will need to either purchase a Reef subscription or obtain an access code after their 2-week trial expires. Be sure to emphasize to your students that they need to arrange their subscription to iClicker Reef in that time period so their access to Reef is not disrupted. Students who will be using iClicker remotes to participate in your class must enter their iClicker remote IDs in the profile section of their Reef accounts. They will not need to purchase a Reef subscription or obtain an access code if they only use an iClicker remote to participate in class. If students want the flexibility to use both an iClicker remote and iClicker Reef on a smart device, they can purchase a Reef subscription or obtain an access code in addition to an iClicker remote. Then add their remote IDs in Reef. Your iClicker Cloud software will record the student's last response to the question, regardless of which or how many devices they use to vote. Please note that if students already have a Reef account, they simply add your course in their account. On our support site, we have many detailed instructions and resources that you can share with your students regarding the registration process. iClicker Cloud is always free for instructors and institutions. For students, iClicker Reef subscriptions start at $14.99 for 6 months and become more of a value as they commit to more time. We also offer site-wide licenses that can be customized for your campus. All accounts come with access to attendance, polling, and quizzing, and one student account can be used in multiple classes in the same term for the same price. All new iClicker Reef accounts come with 2 weeks of free use, so your students can get started with in-class polling right away. This is especially nice if there's a heavy shopping period on your campus in the first few weeks of a new term. Students can participate fully in your class sessions without committing to a subscription until they know if the class is a good fit for them. Now I'm going to show you the iClicker Cloud experience from both an instructor and student perspective. To get started with iClicker Cloud, you need an internet connection and the iClicker Cloud desktop software. Point your browser to iClicker.com, then click the Downloads link at the top of the page. Next, click Download Options next to iClicker Cloud. Here, you'll need to select the option that's right for the type of computer you're using, either Windows or Mac. Once you've clicked on your choice, a zipped file will download. Unzip or extract the folder and save it to the destination of your choice on the computer. If you're using Windows as an operating system on your campus, you may be asked to enter a password when you try and install iClicker Cloud on your campus computer. For this reason, we offer a version of our software that requires no permissions to install. You can find it here. Once you've installed the software, open it. If you haven't created an instructor account yet, click the Create Account button. Here, you'll need to input your primary institution, your discipline, your first and last name, your email address, and a password. If you have the blue instructor remote, you can enter your instructor remote ID here. Agree to the privacy policy and the terms of use, and click Create. I already have an account, so I'm just going to log in. When you use iClicker Cloud for the first time, you'll have a big button in the middle of the screen that says Create a Course. You can also click the Create a Course button in the bottom corner, or you can click the New Course button at the top. When you set up a new course, you're required to confirm your primary institution, your discipline, and you'll need to put in a name for the course. You're also given the option of putting in the course ID, term, meeting days, and meeting times for your class. This information is optional, but it's really helpful for you and your students, especially if you plan on using attendance in your course. The additional information will also help anxious students know they found your course and haven't accidentally added someone else's. When you're satisfied with the details, click Create. I could click Start Polling Session right now and start asking polling questions. I'm all ready to go. But I also might want to plug in my iClicker base. Here you can see now iClicker is enabled, and students who want to use remotes in my class can start doing so. I can just as easily unplug the base and eliminate that option. That's all I need to do to be ready to start a polling session. But first, I want to show you the student experience. Students need to create an account before using iClicker for the first time. They can do so through the mobile app or by visiting iClicker.com. Here, they just need to click Create an Account and then Student. First, the student puts in the name of their institution, confirms it. Then they need to put in their first name, their last name, their email, and their student ID is recommended but not required. Many times the student ID is an important link between your gradebook in iClicker and your LMS gradebook. So be sure to have students input the ID that links best with your LMS. They'll need to agree to the privacy policy and terms of use, and then click Next. Now they create a password, confirm it, and they can create their account. I already have an account, so I'm just going to go and log in. I can sign in through the app, or I can go to iClicker.com and click Sign In, and then Student. And now I just log in using the same login information I use when I log in as an instructor. We know you want to be able to see what your students see when they use iClicker in your class, and it's always nice to do some testing without creating a new login. So your instructor credentials also work as student credentials, and you can use an iClicker Reef account without purchasing a subscription. Once I'm logged in, I can add another course to my account by clicking the plus sign in the upper right corner. It auto-loads the institution I indicated when I set up my account, but I can also search for another institution. Remember that for our students, one iClicker Reef account can be used in many different courses and even on different campuses. Once I've clicked on my institution, I can find my course by either putting in the name of the course or the instructor's last name. I click on the course, and then I click Add this course. You can see I have a prompt here to buy a subscription, but I don't need to do that because I'm an instructor. I clicked on the name of the course, and now I just have to wait until my instructor has started a polling session. Now that my student is up and running with their account, I'm ready to ask some polling questions. I've opened up my iClicker Cloud desktop software, and I clicked on the course that I want to use to ask questions. All I need to do now is click the Start Polling Session. All I need to do now is click the Start Polling Session button. Now you can see my desktop software became a very small floating menu. I can move this around my desktop wherever I want, and by clicking the arrow in the upper left corner I can make it quite small indeed, and clicking it again will restore it to its still very small footprint. I can see how many students have joined my session. I can click here on the Results button after asking a question, and I'm going to click here on Polling to bring up my polling menu bar. If I click here, I can change the question type, and if I click here, I can change it to an anonymous question. I'll demonstrate how to ask all those types of questions during this video. Now all I need is a question to ask. So I'm here in my PowerPoint, and here I have my question. Remember, iClicker works with whatever presentation tools you are already using. So if you think PowerPoint is terrible and you love Google Slides, you don't have to choose between iClicker and the programs you love. Here's what it looks like for your students once you've opened a polling session. My student sees that a poll is in progress and they are prompted to join. Now my student is ready to answer a polling question. All I need to do now is to click the blue and white triangle to start my poll. Here's what it looks like for our student. You can see they get a screenshot of the question that you asked, and now they can easily select their answer. Once they click on an option, they see answer received. They can change their answer as long as the poll is open. And when you're satisfied with the number of responses that you've gotten, you can just click stop. Now your students can see their answer, and they can also click this button to see the class-wide results. As the instructor, it's really easy to view the results and give feedback. So the question here is, what can't iClicker Cloud do? And the answer is E. It cannot work without an internet connection. You can see that all I had to do to grade this answer was to click on this column. I can decide that more than one answer is right, but in this instance, the only correct answer is E. For my student, they can see that they answered E and that that answer is correct. Now that I've shown you a multiple choice question, let me show you how to ask a targeted question. You can see here that I want to ask my students where my office is, but I don't have an image here loaded into my PowerPoint. I'm not limited to PowerPoint when I ask iClicker Cloud questions. So I'm going to jump over to my web browser where I've pulled up a map of my campus. This is actually Pasadena City College's campus, my alma mater. And you can see I'm just on the website. With iClicker Cloud, I'm not limited to the questions I prepared before class. I'm free to make up questions as the flow of my class demands it, and I can ask questions over anything I'm projecting. So here I have my map, and now I'm going to change my question type to target. So with this question, I want my students to identify what building my office is in. All I need to do now is click the play button. Here's what our student sees. They get a screenshot of whatever was on my screen when I clicked the start button. For my student to respond, all they need to do is click on the image. You can see a blue dot appears, and when they're happy with the placement, can move it around, they click send. And they can see that their answer was received. If the poll is still running, they can change their answer. And now that I have an answer, I'm going to click stop. Let me pop back into my PowerPoint and I'll show you the instructor perspective. To grade a targeted question, I'm going to click results. When I hover my mouse over the screen, you see that it prompts me to grade responses. I'm going to click on it. It gives me a nice big image. And now I simply draw a square around the correct answer. Now all I have to do is click save. And I've graded all of the responses. For my student, this is what they see. They can see where their answer is. They can see that it was incorrect. And if they click on results, they're able to see where the correct area is. You can also ask questions that require a short response with iClicker Cloud. Here, I'm asking a fill-in-the-blank question that only takes a few characters, but students can respond with up to 140 characters, using the keyboard that is native to whatever device they're using to respond. To ask a short answer question, I simply have to go up to my toolbar, select short answer, and then click the start button. Let's look at what the student sees. Here you can see they can respond in this field. And as they type their response, they can see how many letters they have left. And then simply click Send Answer. And then it says Answer Received. And again, they can go and change their answer if they're not happy, as long as the poll is still running. And then click Send Answer. As the instructor, I can see how many attendees I have, and I can compare it to how many students have responded. I'm going to click the stop button. To grade the question, all I have to do is click results. And then I can check the box here that indicates that the answer is correct. If I have multiple answers that I feel are correct, I can check multiple answers as being correct. And I can also use this blue star to indicate that one of those answers is better than the others. If I was having a very active classroom with great discussion, I can click the View Word Cloud button to see my responses in a unique way that can make them easy to use for discussion. However, since I only have one student, this word cloud is a little sad. iClicker Cloud also allows for numeric responses, which has obvious applications in mathematics and chemistry classes, but can be used in classes where we don't automatically associate the use of numbers. Here I'm asking students to rate their understanding of a concept. I just set the poll to numeric, and then I press the start button. Here's how it looks for your students. My student can put in up to 8 digits, and I can include decimal points. I can go ahead and send the answer, and then stop the poll. Then I can click on my results, and we can grade these just like we do short answer. Just click on the ones that we feel are correct. If I've asked my students a question and I don't feel that anyone has really given an answer that I want to endorse, I can also come down here and I can put in another response. Not only does it make it so that we can discuss the correct response in class, my students are going to be able to go into their iClicker sessions and they'll have the correct answer loaded in with all of the responses. That way they can be sure to study the correct answer. Each time you run a poll, you have the option to use the anonymous polling feature. Normally, when you ask a polling question, you have the ability to see the individual responses that your students have given. And that can be really valuable information for you as an instructor. For example, on the last question, if I had a student who rated themselves as a 0, I would want to find out who that was so I could reach out and offer some additional resources. However, there are times when we want to encourage our students to be completely honest in a discreet and thoughtful way. In those cases, we can use anonymous polling. Answers are not associated with a name or an ID. If you find yourself wanting to ask an anonymous question, make sure that you have the question type set the way you want, and then click the menu button to the right and select Anonymous. You can see that my bar turns black in order to help me really realize I'm asking an anonymous question. I'm going to press the Start button, and here is how an anonymous question looks to our students. You can see here it's clearly marked as anonymous. When my student comes down and selects their answer, it almost immediately disappears. This makes it so that anyone who might be looking over their shoulder is not going to be able to see how they responded. I'm going to click Stop. In anonymous polling, iClicker Cloud captures the cumulative results of a poll. And you can see it's marked as anonymous here. But you cannot see who answered which way, and no matter how badly I want to know who is drinking no water whatsoever regularly, I can't. I also cannot grade these questions. You'll see as I touch on each column, nothing turns green. This is because if I could grade them, then I could go into my grade book and figure out who answered which way, which would defeat the purpose of anonymous polling. Whenever you want to switch out of anonymous mode, simply go up to that same menu button, click on it, and unselect anonymous. And you'll see my menu bar turns back to a light gray. When your class is over and you're finished with your polling questions, you'll need to end your polling session. First, X out of the toolbar, and then click the X here on the floating menu bar. It is a best practice to try and run one polling session per class period. This makes it easy for your students to keep track of each class period and improves their ability to use iClicker as a study tool outside of class. When you end a session, iClicker Cloud will ask you to confirm that you really do want to end your session. At this point, You also have the option to send your students an exit poll. This will give students the option to provide post-class feedback in REEF about their understanding of class material. As the instructor, at the end of running polling sessions, you'll be brought back to the main screen in the desktop software. Let's see what your students see when class is over. This is what your students see when they log into your iClicker class outside of class times. They can see how they've been performing in your class. They can look at the course history, and they can access study tools. Here you can see they have an alert. This is the exit poll that I sent my students earlier. Here they're asked to rate their level of understanding of the day's course. And here we give them an avenue to discuss any issues they might be having with their instructor. When they're happy with their feedback, they just click Submit. I'll show you later in the training where you can access this feedback. Students can look at their overall performance, and they can look at course history. If they click on an individual session, they're able to take some of these questions and mark them to be studied later. I've marked 2 questions here. I go back. Now I'm going to click on Study Tools. In Study Tools, my student can either go through the questions that I've asked in class with them as flashcards, or they can create a practice test for themselves, and they can manage their questions. Let's look at the flashcards. Here you can see one of the questions that I asked, where is my office? And when the student clicks on it, it turns over to reveal the correct answer. With the practice test, they're asked to answer these questions again. If they put in the incorrect answer, they can see which was their answer, and they can also see the correct answer. Once they've taken their practice test, they have the option to study all the questions again, or they can just study the questions that they missed. This makes iClicker a really powerful study tool for students and makes it so they get more value out of their iClicker REEF subscription. Now I'm back at the home screen in the iClicker Cloud desktop software. Here I can click on Session History to review on the polling sessions that I've already run. You can see here that I have different session names and that I've run quite a few sessions and then deleted them. If you run a session by accident, you can always go over to the little trash can next to it and delete it. I can also click on an individual session, and I can grade or regrade questions as needed. Here, of course, we can't grade the anonymous question. If I had a student who came to me and they had a reason for selecting an answer that was wrong but they wanted points for it, I could go in here and change those points really easily. And not only would the student who complained get those points, but all the students in the course would get it. On this screen, I can also delete individual polling questions by clicking the little trash can in the bottom left corner. I can also extract all the details from my session if I quickly want to be able to tell how my students answered different questions. I can clearly see which student answered which way. Again, with number 5, since it was an anonymous response, all you can see is that the student answered the question, but not how they answered. Now that we've discussed polling in depth, let's talk about running quizzing sessions. From the home screen of the iClicker Cloud desktop software, I click this white arrow next to the green Start Polling Session button. Here I select Start Quizzing Session. On this screen I can put in my quiz name, I can put in the number of questions, I can assign a number of points per question, And here you can see I can only pick multiple choice as my question type, but more question types are coming soon. Once I'm happy with these details, I click Start Session. And you can see I get my very familiar menu. Once I've prepared my software, it's time to make sure I have a quiz to distribute to my students. I have a quiz ready right here. With iClicker Cloud Quizzing, you can replace the use of Scantrons in your class for low-stakes assessments. With quizzing, you distribute a sheet of up to 99 questions, and your students use their iClicker Reef accounts to answer, completing the exercise at their own pace. This is an easy way to do a low-stakes quiz, answer questions during a lab session, or complete a course evaluation. You'll need to project your questions, or you'll need to give your students paper questions because nothing is going to go into the app. I'm going to go ahead and start my quiz. Here's what it looks like for your students. I'll click on the course. It says a quiz in process. I'm going to join. And you'll see my students do not receive a screenshot. Instead, they're given a question number, and then they're given a field for answering. They can answer in any order they like. It's totally up to them. When they've answered all of the questions, they can click Review. If they don't like the way they answered one of their questions, they can go ahead and change it. As the instructor, I can see that none of my students have submitted their quiz yet, but I have one student who's taking it. I can even go and click on my roster and I can see how many of the answers my students have actually done. So I can see that Natalie has taken the quiz, hasn't submitted it, but has answered all 3 questions. If you were to stop a quiz when a student had not submitted their answers yet, they would not get a 0. Instead, all of their answers would be submitted from whatever step they were in taking the quiz. But I'm going to have my student submit the quiz. Here they're asked to state that the work that they are submitting is free of any plagiarism, cheating, and the giving or receiving of unauthorized aid. Then they submit the quiz, and they're done, and they can return to the course. Now I'm going to stop the quiz. Let's pop back into the PowerPoint so that we can have the answers as we grade it. I grade my quizzes just like I grade my polling questions. So for question number 1, what type of question can't you ask with iClicker Cloud? The answer is C, audio answers. For question number 2, when are iClicker Cloud answers graded? The answer is D, after asking a question. And for question number 3, which devices cannot be used by students to answer iClicker Cloud questions? Unfortunately, flip phones are the answer we're looking for here. If you leave this box unchecked, students will only be able to see their overall score on a quiz and will not be able to see individual right or wrong answers. If you do click this box, students will be able to see their answer and the correct answer. You're also given the opportunity to provide written feedback on different answers. So if everyone in your class missed the same question on the quiz, you could give them feedback like this. Review chapter 27 and come to my office hours. And just like that, you've graded the quiz, you've returned feedback, and your students are now able to see how they performed on your latest assessment. The faster we can provide feedback on these sorts of assessments, the tighter the feedback loop we create with our students, and the better learning outcomes we have. Now that we've run quite a few polls and a quiz, you're probably curious about the gradebook, so let's pull that up. From the main screen of the desktop software, I just need to click Launch Gradebook. The gradebook exists online. You can get to this screen by logging in at iClicker.com as an instructor as well. Here you can see your students' grades. You can export all of your grades for easy download and upload into your LMS's gradebook. And you can look into individual student performance. Here I get an overview of my students' performance. I can look more closely at their grades, and I can look more closely at individual sessions. This can be really helpful if you run ice-breaking activities in the first day of class to get to know your students better. If I've used the attendance feature in iClicker Cloud, I can also click on attendance to see my students' attendance. Let's take a look at attendance now. I'm going to click on the name of my course. From here you have a variety of options. Clicking on the Start Polling Session or Start Quizzing buttons will launch your iClicker Cloud desktop software. You must have the iClicker Cloud desktop software installed on the computer that you're using to use either of these buttons successfully. You're also able to take attendance from this screen, which you can do with or without the iClicker Cloud desktop software loaded on your computer. Before we run an attendance session, let's make sure that our settings are the way we want them. I'm going to click on this little pencil next to the location, and here I can change many of the settings for my course. In the attendance area, I can choose to highlight students who've had more than a certain number of absences. I can also set the attendance feature to auto-run during a specific window. I can also decide if I'm going to use geolocation to confirm my students' presence in my class. If I click this button, you'll see I'm using the Pasadena City College campus again. I can zoom in, and zoom in, and zoom in, and zoom in. Until I find where my class is. And I can set my radius. My radius can change from 100 feet to 500 feet. Setting a larger radius when you first begin can be a really good idea because you're not always sure how geolocation is going to behave when you're in your classroom. When you're happy with your settings, you click Save, and now you can click the Take Attendance button. The attendance window opens over here. Let me go and show you what this is like from the student perspective. You can see attendance is in progress, so the student's going to join. My location does not match the class location. From the instructor perspective, I can see that I have one student who is not checked in, and I can see that that student is out of range. If I'm running attendance in my class and I have location turned on, and I have a student who shows up and says, hey, I'm standing right here, but my geolocation isn't working, I can simply turn it off manually very quickly, and then my student can go ahead and join. Success, you've checked into class, and then I can go ahead and end the attendance session. We've covered a lot today, and I hope you're feeling confident about using iClicker Cloud in your classroom. Now I'm going to show you some of the settings instructors are most interested in, though I find this is something that instructors usually aren't ready to think about until they've actually set up their courses and they've made some decisions about how they're going to use iClicker Cloud in their classroom. I'll go over the most essential settings now, but I also want you to know that we have a vast support site with lots of walkthrough guides, clickable tours, and other items designed to support you as you customize iClicker Cloud to be a program that works with you and your distinct teaching style. To access my settings, I need to log into the desktop software and click on the course I want to modify. I can click the little settings cog here in the bottom left corner, or I can click the edit button here. Here I can edit the details regarding my class that I input when I first set the course up. If I click on GradeSync, I'm prompted to go to the GradeSync settings in the online portal. If I click on Attendance, I'm also prompted to go online. If I click on Clickers, I can adjust the settings for my iClicker base if I've elected to use one in my class. The default frequency channel for both the base and the student remotes is AA. If you are the only instructor using iClicker and iClicker remotes, you should not have to modify this frequency. However, if someone else is using iClicker in close proximity, one of you must use a different channel. If you find yourself in this situation, We recommend changing the frequency code to something else for the entire term. When the frequency is not AA, you must instruct students to change the frequency code on their clickers at the beginning of class. Here's where you'll find the settings for polling. This is what I call the meat and potatoes of your settings. You can decide when and if you want to share screenshots with your students, and if you want your students to be able to view results. The defaults on both of these are to send screenshots and share results, as this is the use of in-class polling that is most supported by the current research. However, we understand that every classroom is unique, and we want to give you as many options as possible when it comes to customization. The Scoring tab is where you can make decisions about how your students will earn points when they participate in polls. It's a best practice to keep polling a low-stakes section of your course. This is in keeping with iClicker as a classroom tool designed to improve engagement. It also disincentivizes cheating. Keeping polling points between 5 and 10% of your total points incentivizes students to participate in polls and keeps students from, say, passing their cell phone to another student when they don't feel like coming to class. You have a lot of options here. You can make it so students earn points just for participating, just for right answers, or somewhere in between. The best combination is to incentivize both participation and correct answers. When we only give points for correct answers, our very high achieving and low achieving students can be easily discouraged when they give an incorrect answer. The toolbar setting allows you to customize the sessions toolbar and set the polling timer to count up or count down. The default is to have the timer count up, with you manually stopping the timer, but you can decide you want a set amount of time for each polling question. If so, you can set that here, and when the timer counts down to 0, the poll will stop automatically. This can be helpful if you have a group of students who are taking more time than they really need during polling sessions to answer questions. Lastly, you have your settings for quizzing. Here you can set how many points you want to award per correct question. When you have your settings just the way you want them, click Apply and then OK. It's important to note that any changes you make to the settings only apply to sessions going forward. If you want to change your past polling sessions, you'll need to do so manually. I know this discussion of settings can be a little overwhelming and hard to apply until you're sitting down with your computer and all of your favorite tools. We completely understand. As you ease into using iClicker, I want to point you to the support that we offer here at iClicker, support that we believe is the best and most responsive in the industry. To visit our support site, simply go to iClicker.com and click Support. Here you can search for any issues that you might be having to find articles, clickable tours, videos, and other support items that will help walk you through anything that you want to do with iClicker, or you can click here to contact tech support. If searching for your issue does not get you what you need, be sure to contact tech support. This is open to both you and your students. We ask for some very basic information. We give you a few suggestions for how you might be able to solve whatever issue you're having quickly. And then lastly, you can choose whether you get supported via email or if you reach out to us and call us via phone. Yes, there are real live people on the other end of the phone waiting for you to call and walk you through any issues that you may be having. This is true for both you as an instructor, it's true for administrators, and it's true for your students. So if you decide to use iClicker Cloud in your class, bringing in new tech shouldn't mean that you have a new tech support job. If any of your students are having issues figuring out how to use iClicker, please point them our way and we're very happy to support them. Thanks for watching, and be sure to reach out if you'd like to learn anything more about iClicker Cloud.